Hello all out there in YouTube, and a happy Halloween to you all. Since this is Halloween, you're getting an extra video today. I'm glad everybody's been enjoying my 1990s ranking series, but hey, it's Halloween, so we might as well celebrate with an extra video. Welcome back everybody to another episode of Art of the Scare. This is the show where I take a popular horror movie and I look at what is considered the scariest scene from that movie, or at least one of the scariest scenes from that movie, and I attempt to analyze it and talk about why it works, or at least why I think it's so scary. And the little disclaimer that I like to give before this, I am no expert on psychology, and I don't really view myself as a horror movie expert. I'm just a guy who's enthusiastic about the horror genre, and I will make any excuse to talk about it. So, for this episode of Art of the Scare, we are looking at Psycho. But we're actually not talking about the shower scene in this episode. I had gotten a couple of requests to talk about Psycho for Art of the Scare, and I was very hesitant to do this one. Just because it's Psycho, it's one of the most influential horror movies ever made. The shower scene has been talked about so much in regards to film history, in regards to one of the greatest deaths in film history, not just the horror genre. There are so many videos talking about Psycho's shower scene. There are so many articles talking about this scene. There's this documentary, 7852, which is an entire documentary dedicated to Alfred Hitchcock's shower scene. And because so many people have talked about it already, I don't think I can really add anything to it. We will touch on the shower scene a little, but it's already been talked about so much, and I have a hard time talking about movies that have been talked about so much already because I can't really add anything new to the conversation, and I don't want to just repeat what everybody else has said. I mean, hey, Psycho's a great movie. Surprise, surprise.
She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
And of course we have Arbogast's death where he sort of falls down that staircase. That's a great scene too, but that's already been talked about a lot. So I wasn't sure what to talk about with Psycho and not just repeat what everyone else has said. But then I came up with something that I thought I could add to this movie. There are a couple other moments that I think are the scariest scenes in Psycho, and they're scary on repeat viewings. Once you know what's going on with Psycho, the moments that I'm going to talk about here become some of the scariest moments in the movie. And with that being said, I am going to have spoilers for Psycho, so that's a spoiler alert, spoiler alert. If you have not seen Psycho, go watch it. It is well worth your time. And then you can come back and watch this video. But this video will only work with spoilers of Psycho. But before we get into that, we will touch on the shower scene, and we will touch on the movie in general. So, Psycho came out in 1960, and it was directed by Alfred Hitchcock, starring Janet Leigh, the mother of Jamie Lee Curtis, who we all know from Halloween. So the premise of Psycho is very simple, but it was complex for back in the day, and it still has some complexity now. We follow this woman named Marion Crane who has stolen a decent sum of money from her bank. They have a new client who has made a deposit, and she's running out of town with the money because she wants to get involved with her boyfriend who is down on his luck, and in order for them to actually have a relationship, they need to have some money saved up. So she steals the money, she heads out of town, and through her travels, she ends up in this very bad snowstorm, and she finds the Bates Motel, which is just off the beaten path, and there she meets Norman Bates. who has an unhealthy relationship with his mother.
No, I tell you, no. I won't have you bringing strange young girls in for supper. By candlelight, I suppose, in the cheap, erotic fashion of young men with cheap, erotic minds.
One thing leads to another, and Marion gets stabbed to death in the shower at the Bates Motel. This was a huge deal back in the day. Alfred Hitchcock had to convince theater owners to not let anybody into the movie after it already started, because we're led to believe that Marion Crane is the main character. And for a good portion of the movie she is, but around the halfway point, she's killed off, which had never been done before at the time. So this was a big deal, and after the shower scene, the only person we're left to identify with is Norman Bates. Anyway, this is where we're getting into spoilers here. One thing leads to another, and at the end of the movie, we find out that Norman Bates' mother has been dead the whole time, and it's really Norman who has been putting on a wig, putting on a dress, and dressing up as his mother, and committing the murders of this movie. Not only that, but talking for his mother throughout the movie. So every time we hear a conversation between Norman and his mother, it's him doing both the voices.
Tell her she'll not be appeasing her ugly appetite with my food, or my son. Or do I have to tell her because you don't have the guts? Huh, boy? You have the guts, boy?
Shut up! Shut up!
Now, before we get into what I think are some of the scariest scenes in this movie, we do have to look at the shower scene. And I do apologize, because I know I'm going to be repeating what many people have said about this scene. This was a huge deal. At the time, at least in America, the shower scene was the most violent thing seen on the big screen. And the 1960s was when, 1960 in general, the year of 1960, was when movies started pushing the envelope a little more in violence. You didn't just see it here in America with Psycho, you saw it in Italy with Black Sunday. There's a scene where this woman gets a mask filled with nails hammered onto her face. You had the French movie Eyes Without a Face, and that has a scene where a woman gets, it has an operation scene where a woman's getting a face transplant and getting her face cut off, and we see some gory bits there. And then you had Peeping Tom in the UK, which isn't a violent movie, but it's a movie that explained, that focused on voyeurism, which was a very horrific thing at the time, and it was something that hadn't been really explored in movies until that point. So these films were the catalyst for seeing more violence in cinema, and in America, Psycho was that catalyst. Because you see the shower scene, you don't see the knife actually stabbing the body. You see the blood on the floor, which of course was chocolate syrup because it was a black and white film and you couldn't tell that it was chocolate syrup, it looked like blood. You see Marion screaming and you see all these different cuts, and there's this one point where you see the knife make contact with Marion's body. It's a very quick shot. This moment here helps create the illusion of Marion being stabbed. We think we're seeing the stabbing, but we're not. But that one moment where we see the knife just poke Marion's flesh, that helps eliminate the disconnect between the cuts and the knife going in. So, yes, seeing that knife touching the body is that extra element that helps us picture Marion being stabbed in our minds, helps us seeing the knife puncturing her flesh in our heads. But the moments that really scare me, and that I think make Psycho so much more terrifying, are scenes that are scarier after you know all the twists. On repeat viewings, these moments become scarier. And this is what I'm talking about.
Mother, please.
And then what? After supper, music, whispers?
Mother, she's just a stranger. She's hungry and it's raining out.
Mother, she's just a stranger.
The moments we don't see where Norman Bates is talking to his mother. Now, when you're first seeing the movie, if you're watching Psycho and you don't know what's happening in it, which is hard to do nowadays, with the existence of the internet, this movie being so old, and so many people talking about Psycho, it's hard to not go into Psycho and not have it spoiled for you. But for people who are lucky enough to be able to watch Psycho and not have the ending spoiled for you, that's a big shocking moment, finding out that Norman's mother is dead and Norman Bates is being his mother. So having that shock is very rewarding, but Psycho doesn't need to really rely on its twist ending, because once you know what's going on in the movie, it makes Psycho so much scarier on repeat viewings. Once you know that Norman Bates is being his mother, is talking for his mother, that his mother is a corpse in his house, it makes the scenes where you hear him talking to his mother so much more frightening.
This is my room, and no one will drag me out of it. Least of all, my big, bold son.
They'll come now, Mother. He came after the girl, and now someone will come after him. Mother, please, it's just for a few days. Just for a few days so they won't find you.
I love my gore, I love my blood in my horror movies. I'm a big fan of blood in horror movies, and of course I do love my gore, my practical effects, my arterial spray, my blood, guts, decapitations. I love it all. But I also am a big fan of suspense, and I also think that sometimes what you don't see can be scarier than what you do see. I think that all works. I think there are scenes when gore works better. I think there are scenes where suspense works better. I think there are moments where not seeing what happens and filling the blanks in your mind is even scarier. That is what makes Psycho scarier on repeat viewings.
Do you go out with friends?
Well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
Because you start to wonder in your head, what's going on in that house? When you hear Norman Bates talking to his mother, you're wondering, what's going on here? What is happening in this house? You wish you were a fly on the wall while this was happening. Is he just sitting there talking to the corpse? Is he, making the motions of his mother as he's voicing for his mother and wandering around the house, talking as both of them? You wonder, does he sit next to the corpse and talk to it as he's having these conversations with the mother half of him? And then we have the infamous shower scene where Norman Bates, dressed as his mother, stabs the hell out of Marion. And of course we don't know it's Marion, we don't know it's Norman the first time around. Second time around we know it's him. And there's another creepy moment, because it's in shadow, you wonder what his face looks like as he's doing this. But anyway. But then the scene ends, and Marion is now lying on the ground, dead, and we get that nice spiral shot of the drain and the nice spiral shot of her eye as she's just lying there on the floor after being stabbed to death. But then we have that moment where the camera pans away from the shower and over to the house behind the Bates Motel. And then we hear this line.
Mother! Oh, God! Mother! Blood! Blood!
Once you know that Norman is being his mother, your imagination runs wild. What happened in that moment? Was Norman able to see what happened behind his mother's eyes at that moment? Did he come to all of a sudden and see himself drenched in blood, holding the knife, and just think, oh God, mother? Did he undress first and then come to the realization what happened, like seeing the bloody clothes on the ground? You don't entirely know what happens, but you wish you did, and then you just create the most terrifying images in your head. I love Psycho the first time around. I love watching Psycho with people who haven't seen it before. But on second viewings, Psycho is so much scarier. Those moments where we hear Norman talking to his mother's corpse are terrifying. And they're terrifying because we don't see what's going on. And then we create what's going on in our heads.
Cowboy, you have the guts, boy.
Shut up! Shut up!
And that's about it. That's my thoughts on Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. I do apologize that I couldn't focus more on the shower scene, but, I wanted to try to put a different angle on Psycho. But I hope you all enjoyed this movie. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all for watching the Halloween ranking series. I hope you all have a happy Halloween, and we'll be getting back to our regular schedule. So you won't have a video this Wednesday, obviously, because I've already put out a bunch, but we will be getting back to my regular schedule where I upload every Wednesday next week. And on that note, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for the continued support. It truly does mean a lot to me. And with that, this is the Maniac here to remind you that the Grindhouse will never die.